Hi everybody, welcome back to Speedway Motors. My name's Tim. I'm one of the techs here. I always love it when you can stop by the shop and we can talk about some of the great parts that we have available to you. You know, if you know anything about me, you know I love talking about old school traditional hot rods and vintage race cars. If you're looking over my shoulder over here, you might even recognize that I have some V8-60 Ford Flathead parts with me, stuff my forefathers would have used. You might even be of the camp that asks yourself, what the heck is a V8-60, Tim? Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'll talk a little bit about that, not to bore the folks out there that already know what a V8-60 is, but then I'll get into some of the parts that we love keeping in our catalog, because there are a lot of guys out there still working on these engines, putting them into vintage racers and all kinds of different projects. So the V8-60 was originally designed by Ford as an alternative to the larger 85-horse Flathead V8. It was basically smaller in every way, and they're really pretty cute. I actually found one of these right across the street from where my grandpa lived. It's in a tree grove, and the first time I saw one of these out in the wild, I thought, holy cow, it's so precious, such a neat looking little engine. They actually made these from 1937 to 1940, and they never really caught fire with consumers, so Ford ended up phasing them out. They built a new engine that actually took the place of this. That wasn't a V8, it was just a straight 6 engine, so they didn't need the V8-60 anymore, so they went into the history books, only to be revived and scavenged by midget racers of the 50s and 60s. They found out that these engines were just the right size for a midget car, and what was great about these engines is they produced enough horsepower they could keep up with the Offie engines of the time. They even called these a poor man's Offie, which is pretty funny. The only downside to these is they got pretty hot. You know, they called them the tea kettle. They'd start blowing out coolant at the end of the race, you know, after they'd been worked over pretty hard. But what was really neat about the V8-60s is guys did all the same hop-ups to these engines as they would have done with the old big V8 Flathead. So, you know, you'll find overhead valve conversions for these. They have the famous jiggler cars of the day that, you know, use the overhead valves on the exhaust side. Arden even made some really rare V8-60 heads. Very few of those out in existence, but they are out there. If you visit the Museum of American Speed, a place that I've been hanging out a lot lately, you'll see all kinds of speed parts for V8-60s, and it was just a testament to just how wonderfully these engines performed on the racetracks. Guys really loved them. They actually made these in 2 variations, and if you talk to the old fellas that have been around these motors for a long time, I was telling one of my buddies that I found one of these out in the tree grove, and he asked me, he said, Tim, is it the tin or is it the cast? I didn't realize there was a difference, but actually in 1937, the earliest engines used a tin water jacket, and I guess that was less desirable than the cast version. They actually stopped producing that tin water jacket in April of 1937, so it didn't last long, but there are some of those engines out there, and they went to an all cast block, which is more favorable. I'll talk a little bit about some of the goodies that we have for these engines in our catalog, and I'm so proud here at Speedway that we still offer some of these parts because they are hard to find. Finding original parts for V8-60s, original speed parts, is really tricky, and the price is pretty stiff on a lot of these things unless you can get them from us in our book. So I brought some of my favorites. Number one, numero uno, that I'll talk about is the styrofoam block. These things are great. I mean, if you're building a car that needs a V8-60, trust me, it's not just midget racers. I've seen guys putting these things in Crossleys and motorcycles and you name it. I mean, it's a cute engine. A lot of guys are using them for all kinds of different stuff nowadays. But this foam block comes in really handy because if space is of the essence, you know, you're going to need something that allows you to design your frame around it without having the weight of the original block, or maybe your only block that you own is at the machine shop getting worked on. So this is great. We also sell the cylinder heads for these in foam too, which is nice. These are original style. This brings up another interesting point about V8-60s. They're actually a 17 stud head. Other than the small size, that's a way to figure out if you've got a V8-60 if they only have 17 studs, so something to keep in mind there. But we also have these foam pieces. They're great. They're so lightweight. It's fun to play around with this kind of stuff. Kind of moving on, the front cover that we offer, boy, this is an exact replica of the Eddie Meyer engineering front cover that you could have bought back in the day, which is wonderful, brand new, right off the shelf, and it's well machined. Everything's real nice about this, ready to mount your distributor up front, block off your old water pump ports there, so that's great. We also offer the water inlets. These are original Offenhauser castings, which are just wonderful, just like you would have bought in the speed shop back in the day, still with the Offenhauser script on them. They come in a pair, wonderful piece. Another cool part that I like to talk about is this crank-driven water pump. Holy cow, this thing's neat. It's got a grease zert on it to keep it lubricated. A lot of guys call me and ask me, Tim, can I run this pump on the street? Well, unfortunately not. This thing's kind of designed to turn a little higher RPM. You don't want to overheat your street motor, so most of the time I'm selling this to guys that are building midget cars, vintage cars, and it works great. This is something that's actually been around a long, long time. Bill Smith got these in our book back in the early days, it makes it a great piece. I actually sell quite a few of these, which is a testament to guys still putting these motors together. One of my other favorite pieces is this intake manifold, and this is actually a 3-piece set. This is an Eddie Meyer as well, and it comes with these wonderful carburetor adapters with the 3-bolt carb pad, so that tells you could run any early carburetor with this. Stromberg 97 is usually the carb of choice on one of these motors, so keep that in mind. And then I'll just take these off and set them over here, and you can see the Eddie Meyer Hollywood script on this intake. Boy, it's great. It's finned. A lot of guys polish these up and paint in between the fins. They look wonderful. So another great piece that you can get from us here at Speedway. A lot of guys ask me if they can buy these adapters individually. Unfortunately, we only sell this as a kit, but it never hurts to ask. The more guys that we get asking about this, maybe we can start producing these as an individual item if you do need these little adapters. So just let us know. So wanted to cover at least some of the parts that we sell for V8-60s. They're a neat engine. Get online, Google them, look at some of the different variations. If you want to get up close and personal, visit the Museum of American Speed too. There's some excellent examples over there of some of the rarest V8-60 parts anywhere. And Bill Smith loved these motors. We do too to this day. So give us a shout. Check out our website, speedwaymotors.com. We've got a wonderful tech staff. Give us a call with any questions you have. And guys, we'll see you next time. Really appreciate you stopping by the shop again. Take care.